Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm honored to present House Bill 340 today, the Distraction-Free Education Act. First and foremost, I want to thank the bipartisan collection of legislators throughout this building who have come out in support of this bill. I want to thank the Lieutenant Governor for the discussion and thoughtfulness over the last several months on this topic. Speaker, Department of Education, teachers, the Georgia Sheriff's Association, school superintendents, and most of all, parents in many communities across the state. The evidence is clear. One of the biggest threats to academic performance, students' mental health, and public safety are cell phones in our schools. The average student receives over 237 notifications a day, and some as many as 4,500. Students spend on average an hour and a half on their phones during school hours, pulling attention away from learning and turning our teachers into cell phone police officers. Research shows it takes over 23 minutes to regain focus after a distraction, meaning many students never fully get engaged in their education. Our teachers are seeing the impact firsthand. Over 85% of high school teachers and 68% of middle school teachers report that cell phones are a major problem in their classrooms. Educators overwhelmingly support cell phone-free classrooms, with 90% saying phones are a major distraction. The data backs it up. Schools that have implemented bell-to-bell cell phone bans have seen fewer disruptions, higher grades, and a decrease in disciplinary incidents. Beginning with the 2026-2027 school year, public schools, grade K through 8, shall be cell phone free from bell to bell, from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. Beyond that, we will allow school systems to design a program that works for them. And again, we will allow local school systems to design the best program that works for them. So each local community will have a say in what this should look like in only grades kindergarten through 8th grade. Finally, schools are required to have clear policies, procedures for field trips, emergencies, daily transport, or other student needs. This bill isn't just about academics, it's about students' well-being. Studies link excessive phone use to mental health issues, decrease in social skills, and increase in bullying. We want students engaged in school, socializing with friends during lunch, and focusing in the classroom. As the parent of 3 young children, and my wife is a school teacher, my first thought every day when dropping our kids off at school is that their safety and public safety is taken care of, and those experts that are on the front lines of public safety agree. Removing phones creates a safer school environment. In an emergency, we want our kids full and undivided attention, clear phone lines, no misinformation, kids listening to teachers, kids listening to school resource officers. If, God forbid, there's an incident in the school, I want my child and your child to be able to follow instructions very clearly without distraction, to get out of a building, get out of a classroom, and be safe. Schools that have implemented a cell-free policy have seen hallway fights, bullying, and other violence decrease. We are not alone. From Virginia to Alabama, states across the nation are taking action. The results speak for themselves: reduced threats, higher grades, and better student engagement. Let's do what's right for Georgia students. Let's get cell phones out of the classroom so a teacher can teach and our brightest minds can learn. Let's pass House Bill 340 and bring focus back to the classroom. With that, Mr. President, I'll yield for a couple questions.
You do have a couple questions. Senator from the 53rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will Senator yield?
Yes, Senator.
This legislation only includes K through the 8th grade. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Would you also agree with me that this legislation is a sign that our teachers cannot maintain a standard of discipline in the classroom?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Would you agree with me that this type of legislation, making it this far in the legislative process, is proof that teachers lack the ability to maintain a standard of discipline in the classroom, and we as a legislature should do more to empower teachers to maintain a standard of discipline.
Well, Senator, I will say this to your question and your comments also, so I can go home and sleep tonight with my wife being a teacher. I think this Senate and legislative body needs to do everything in our power to empower teachers to have a greater say of what happens in his or her classroom. I believe that this bill also demonstrates that when there are distractions in the classroom, a teacher is scared to death to empower themselves or even sometimes maybe a family member because they're worried about reprisal, punishment, or something in a school district from basically doing what's best for what they believe is in the classroom. So I think whatever we can do on this issue or other issues, we need to empower teachers more.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. Great question.
Recognize Senator from the 56.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
Yes, sir.
Senator, I commend you for carrying this bill in the Senate. I do have a question, though, specifically, if a school system either provides devices such as a laptop or a tablet, or they have a BYOD policy of allowing them to use them in a class for certain types of things they're working on, would that still be allowed under this bill?
Yes. If a school district is basically providing devices and they already have kind of a system set up, this does not infringe on the school district's current practices. This bill very specifically states that local districts shall create policies that are best for them and their community as in terms of what they do with devices during the bell-to-bell time frame.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Recognize Senator from the 55th for a question.
Will the distinguished senator yield?
Yes, Senator.
Is there a provision that parents will still be able to be in contact with their kids in cases of emergency, or how is that envisioned to be taken care of?
Yes, Senator, great question. So when it comes to in cases of emergency or checking on their kids, all of those types of instances would be covered in the policy that the local school district would basically design in terms of where and how that device is handled during the bell-to-bell time frame. I mean, my advice during an emergency at a school, while we know that parents are scared, parents are worried about where their kids are, parents are worried about kind of what's happening at a moment's notice. Trusting law enforcement, trusting the first responders, and following the instructions when emergency text messages, alerts, or other things are put out by an individual school or school district, I think are important. And this bill does not infringe on any of those communication methods that school districts use now or would develop or use in the future.
Recognize Senator from the 50th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that when I was in elementary school and middle school, I didn't have a cell phone with me that I brought to school every day?
That is true, Senator.
And isn't it true that if my mom or dad needed to get in touch with me, there's a landline that they can call at the school, and someone picks up the phone and they ask if they have a message, and if they had a message for me, they could leave it, and there's a loudspeaker in the school that can say, "Would this student please come up to the principal's office?" And they can relay that message, and that technology is still around today.
That is correct. That technology is today. Back in the day, I had a beeper. I'm a little bit older than you, so that's how our parents would get in touch with us. But we would still have to go to the front office, and the front office would still have to call our parents to basically get in touch with us.
And does the senator further yield?
If they would let us respond to that beeper.
That's right. Does the senator further
Yes,
yield?
sir.
Nothing in this bill prevents a teacher from having a cell phone in the school, does it?
No, this is not about taking phones away. This is about putting phones away so they're not a distraction during the bell-to-bell time frame.
And does the senator further yield?
Yes.
Isn't it true that right now I have multiple children in elementary school, and that if I need to communicate with their teacher, there are apps such as Class Dojo that I can literally, while we're in this chamber, send a message to their teacher. So if there was any reason I needed to get in touch with my elementary school student, I could do that here without them having their own cell phone in class.
Yeah, Senator, that's correct. Currently, whether it's through an app, through group text messaging, through email, and other direct classroom connection or communication methods between parent and the teacher do exist in hundreds of our schools today in Georgia.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Great questions.
Recognize the senator from the 27th. Recognize the senator from the 27th for a question. You waving? Yes. Recognize the senator from the 2nd for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, do you yield?
Yes, sir.
Senator, is it not true that I was raised by my grandmother? Is that not true?
That's correct.
And Senator, is it not further true that one of the first things that my grandmother taught me was to remember our house telephone number, which was 912-238-3354? Is that not true?
That's correct.
And Senator, is it not further true that I probably got in a little trouble for talking too much in class? And
see that.
the teacher's recourse would be to call my grandmother on the house phone because my grandmother didn't have a landline. And she was always able to reach my grandmother at home and never needed to reach me at school. And Senator, is it not further true that when my grandmother called the school to give me a message, would it not be a Southern saying that my grandmother would say, children should stay out of grown folks' business? Is that not further true?
That is true. And my mother growing up, we had a landline, 770-447-9386. And that school would contact my mother and tell, how me and my brother were getting in trouble that day. And it never ended well, but they had a way to find us.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you for the question.
You have no more questions, no further questions.
Thank you, Mr.
Senator.
President. I ask for a green vote on this to help our classrooms in kindergarten through 8th grade and to continue to raise fantastic kids in Georgia. Mr. President, I yield the will.
All right, we have